Sports card radio are the biggest scumbags and scammers within the trading card hobby and epitomise everything that is wrong with it. At least that is according to Mr. Jeff out there.
My name is Jeff.
Now, me personally, I don't agree with that viewpoint in any way, shape or form. And I'm going to talk you through today why the people that have that mindset and completely shut themselves off from content creators like Sports Card Radio, are doing themselves a disservice, and why there's people out there that are saying these things about these guys off the back of, baseless facts, in my opinion. They're not doing their research. They're saying things to try and get clout for themselves, and then, essentially lying to you as viewers. So we're going to chat through that today, and then we'll kick on from there in the comments section down below. We can have a conversation as we always do. Now, the first thing I want to say straight off the bat, I'm a big fan of Sports Card Radio, as I've said many times on the channel. I really like what the twins do, both Ryan and Colin. They do a great job educating people within the hobby around scammers, around scumbags, around thieves, around all this sort of stuff, douchebags, all this kind of behavior within the hobby that is incredibly negative, with people trying to, take advantage of others, scam people. They call them out. I do that same thing here on my channel. So I'm a huge proponent of trying to push forward those kinds of things, right? Because so many people these days are so quick to zip their lips and just toe the narrative, toe the company line, and just say what everybody else is saying because they're scared, because they're going to lose their sponsorships, and they're going to care about their pockets rather than you as a viewer. It's very, very clear that Sports Card Radio, yes, they make money off the back of their content, but primarily they're there to educate you. I do the same thing. So when you've got people coming out and saying these guys are bad for the hobby, in my opinion, you need to sit back and ask why they're saying those things. Can I trust what this person is saying? Maybe they're saying it off baseless facts, but then you have to ask yourself, why is this person saying something to me as a viewer without any information, without any research on their part? And then who knows when they've done similar things like this in the past? So those are the kinds of questions you need to be asking yourself. And one of the big things that the likes of, the great curator, Ken Gold, and a few others have said over the last month, as an example, is that the people that are Sports Card Radio, the twins are purely there to hate on the hobby. They're purely there to take advantage, create clickbait, create hateful content that are targeted towards people. They're racist, all this sort of stuff, right? They're doing all this stuff because they're very hateful people. They don't care about the hobby at all. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Let's look at what their content actually is. They're talking about scammers, like I said, a bit of scumbags, all this sort of stuff. They're trying to educate you as a viewer so you don't get scammed yourself. Yes, you don't always have to agree with the approach they take with certain videos, but that's life in general, right? I'm sure there's things that those guys have seen me say in a video that they don't agree with. But what does that mean? It's part of being an adult. You can have discourse with people. Just because you don't agree with what someone says in one instance does not mean that you switch yourself off from them completely, that you shield yourself away from them, because that's just a really poor mindset to take. And it leads you towards being like in an echo chamber, as an example. And I don't want to get into that discussion, but when you're shutting yourself off completely from somebody because you don't agree on one viewpoint, as an example, you're letting yourself down from learning, educating, uplifting your knowledge, all that sort of stuff. But following on from that, when you've got the guys, like I said, the great curator, saying these things, and he's saying they're purely there to hate on people. They don't care about cards. He's saying that, and then hates on them, as in Sports Card Radio, for saying that he's purely there to pump. He's purely there for clickbait titles. He doesn't care about cards. He's purely there to, pump up Marvel cards so he can dump them, right? And then he comes on his podcast, says those things about Sports Card Radio, say those things about him.
They clearly have not watched any of my content. The things that they say are just not applicable to me at all. They have not watched any of my content. They probably, to the extent that they know me, they've probably seen the thumbnails that I have on my videos, which is like clickbait anyways, and they base their opinion off. They're controversial. They're not creative enough to come up with any type of fun content. They just want to critique people. That's their brand. That's their image. I get it. I just think that there's probably other things that they can talk about rather than us,
And they're not doing their research. It's like, well, hang on a minute, mate. Have you done your own research? Because when you say those things about Sports Card Radio, have you actually looked at, their content? Have you looked back at the series that they did where they spoke about how to be a dealer, how to buy and sell trading cards, how to make a business out of trading cards? You've got Colin doing, a 5-part series where Ryan plays a bit of a colorful character in that series. I'm sure it's a bit of an act. I'm sure there's some truth to it as well, but it's a really interesting series. And do you really think that people are going to make those kind of videos, make that content for their viewers to try and educate people if they don't care about cards? It's like, come on, mate. And how can you, say those things about Sports Card Radio? They're only looking at your thumbnails and hating on you. It's very hypocritical to then say the same thing about them when you haven't done the research yourself. Because if you'd done the research for yourself, you wouldn't be saying those things. We need more content creators like this that are not afraid to speak their minds, that are not afraid to not just toe, the company line of the trading card hobby, not say the same things that everybody else is saying to line their own pockets, right? From my perspective, like I trust the people that are telling me how it is. Okay, you don't always have to agree with it. I trust the people that are telling me things that are going to educate me. I don't trust the people, like the people that have called out Sports Card Radio as an example for being haters, that say things off the back of what sponsors are saying. That saying you should go and submit your cards with Mark's cards as an example because you're going to get good grades as an example using their submission service. You're going to get, it's a family business, so on and so forth. Like, who are you going to trust? The person that says that off baseless fact and then you send your cards in and you get burned, or the person telling you how it is? This sort of stuff, it irks me a little bit because I just find it to be really disingenuous. And I hate that people are so focused on trying to protect what they have rather than, educate and uplift other people, right? We're a hobby. We're meant to help each other out. Like me personally, I don't care whether people watch my content or not. As long as there's one person out there that gets some insight with regards to some of these scammers that I call it, with regards to some of these platforms, so on and so forth, like I've done in recent months. Like, as long as I can help one person, I'm happy. I'm not going to tell you who to like. If you go back and watch my videos on the Great Curator over the last fortnight, as an example, Mojo Sports before that, baseball card exchange, I'm not telling you don't use these things. I'm not saying ignore them. I'm not saying stay away from them. I'll say personally I would, but I state the facts for you and then leave it up to you to make your own mind. Sports Card Radio do the same thing. You've got people out there that are hating on these guys, hating on me as an example, that are saying, you know what, guys, block all these people, keep them away from you, just focus on doing you. You don't need to worry about these guys, just listen to me. It's like, okay, what does it mean when people are saying those things? Why are they saying those things to me? And I just wish more people within the hobby would, start doing that. And it's more of a comment for life in general, to be honest, because people get too focused on being too scared to step outside like the narrative. They're stuck in their little bubble. They're stuck in their little silo. You need to get out and start raising things for yourself. And I know I'm talking on a tangent now, but it was primarily there just to educate you and give you some insights. Like I said, when people are saying that stuff about Sports Card Radio, they've made many videos in the past around sports card dealing and buying and selling cards. You've got Colin and Ryan attending card shows and they're talking to Mojo Sports before Mojo Sports, blew up, and they did a bit of an interview for him. Do you think the guys are going to sit at a card show for 6 hours that don't care about cards? Like, come on, guys. If you're going to hate on somebody, hate on them for a real reason, right? Don't hate on them for that and then try and shift that as your narrative because it makes you look like an idiot. And I know in my video last week I said I wouldn't talk about the Great Curator again, but he went on a bit of a live stream again last week. He went on a bit of a tangent, I should say. He went on his live stream on a bit of a tangent. And he basically said, for about 20 minutes, he spoke about the same matter that he said he wouldn't speak about again. So you can't really hate at me for saying, I know I said last week I wouldn't speak about the Great Curator again. But when I say that, and he says statements like, Sports Card Radio are purely hateful, they're only making content off my thumbnails, they need to do a bit more research. It's like, mate, Great Curator, how about you go do your own research on Sports Card Radio before you then start talking shit about them? It's like, mate, you're a bit of a hypocrite. And yes, people make mistakes. I'm sure I've misspoken in the past. But come on, do your own research. How can your followers take you seriously when you say one thing and then do another? Like I said about the Great Curator, when this guy's being accused of pumping, right? He's got all these examples where there's enough belief there to suggest he's pumping, okay, and then dumping. Yet he then backtracks and says he didn't say certain things. You can go watch a video where he does say those things, and you've done it again here where you're saying all these things about Sports Card Radio that are untrue. It's like, what value do your words have? Like, maybe he's just misspoken on camera, because it happens. When I ramble, sometimes I misspeak and things get confusing when you're talking without cutting out or anything like that. But like when things start happening consistently enough, it's like, when do you draw the line? And that's what I'm trying to educate you all on. I'm not saying what should I say to watch. I'm saying do whatever you want, but just keep that stuff front of mind when you're watching this content. Keep these things front of mind when people are telling you, not to do certain things. Okay, why are they telling you not to do certain things? Do they have an agenda? Okay, they're saying not to do certain things, but then let's keep that in the back of my mind. And then if I see them say something different on a video, it's like, okay, that's why they've said that. There's so many people in the hobby that are primarily there to line their own pockets at the expense of you as a viewer. They don't care about you. And I know I'm talking to another topic that I've spoken about in the past, and the power that influencers have and content creators have on you as a viewer, because they don't care about you. They're just a person on the camera. You don't know what they're like in real life. So from my perspective, when you've got people doing that, like I said a little bit earlier, you've got people like Sports Card Radio that are telling you how it is. They're telling you they're calling out scammers. They're calling out scumbags. They're calling out these thieves within the hobby. They're calling out all this negative behavior. It's like, who are you going to trust? And that's where I'll basically leave it for this week. I know I've spoken in circles many, many times, so I hope you did enjoy what I did try and convey just there. Like, I hope it came through coherently. Please share down in the comments below, like we always do. We always have a really good discussion. I reply to every comment on this channel. I'm not somebody that just ignores them. I like the discussion. I like educating people. I like, educating myself and understanding things. I want to understand if you're somebody out there that was a hater of Sports Card Radio based off what other people said, and then you watch their content and you start, hang on a minute, these guys are not too bad. Because if you go see their videos, basically every second comment is somebody saying something along those lines. They're like, yeah, I didn't agree with what you said regarding Sasha T. And then from then on, I hated on you guys. I listened to what Mojo Sports said. I listened to what Card Collector 2 said. But now that I've watched a bit more of your videos because your content's interesting, I see where you're coming from. Maybe you were just playing a bit of a character. Maybe you were joking, or maybe you regret what you said. But what you're saying now is really educational. I'm not going to turn myself away from that out of spite or because somebody like the great curator told me to. It's like, you can listen to anything, be there, make up your own mind, and then you'll be fine within the hobby. Just make sure you're listening to the right people and you'll not go wrong. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.